Amy, would you mind introducing yourself and telling us how you got into SEO specifically for pet businesses?
It's nice to be here. I've been doing, I think I sent my first email almost 40 years ago. I was working on Wall Street and, things kind of progress. Your life changes. You have different stops and starts. And I actually ended up working for about 2.5 years in the building where Severance was filmed, which is kind of cool. And I've been working in SEO since about 2015. I have been doing my own business since 2017. In that time, besides doing SEO, I have also been concentrating on Google listings, and I have in the Google listing forum working with Googlers, I have gotten up to diamond level, which is the top, which means I kind of do it a lot and I kind of have no life. But I do enjoy it and help a lot of people out. And it's the nicest feeling to have somebody come back to you and basically say, oh, you saved my family. You saved this, you saved that. I'm like, you're welcome. What do you say to that?
Yeah.
But it's been nice. It's been a good ride.
Yeah, I feel like that's how I got to learn more about you too, is because I feel like I saw in different Facebook groups of people referring you specifically for Google business listings and issues that have popped up and that exactly what you're kind of talking about here, which is so important and it really impacts businesses. So I'm so excited to talk to you about Google business listings today because you are the expert. I would love to just go into maybe if you could give us a quick overview of what Google Business Profile Listing is, like what does it do for a pet business?
When you go onto your phone and you look for pizza, like pizzeria near me, okay, or a gas station near me, those little listings, as long as you're doing it in usually in Chrome, most people do in Chrome, the little list that shows up, or if you just, well, Chrome, the little list that shows up, which usually has a business name, star rating, number of reviews, things like that, those are Google listings. They are free. As I tell people, there's actually a lot more inherent in that. Saying it's free is kind of like, yes, but there's a lot more going on. Anyway, they are free to use and they're lovely and helpful. But I will say that there is indeed a lot going on with them. You really have to make sure you're on the straight and narrow because they bring in, oh my goodness, they bring in for some businesses like 3/4 of their leads because that's where people find you. If it is properly optimized, meaning it has all the correct information, then you are usually in the position where, like I said, you get a majority of your leads there. I always say to people, you want to make sure that you have, other funnels, so to speak, but they are the primary driver these days. And even, Google's Gemini uses them. And that's the AI that most people have easiest access to without paying for it. It just comes with your system. And they're really, really relatively easy to work with. You can go in on your browser. They used to be an app, no more app. Just when you're in your browser, you type in my business and you can log into it. They're not difficult to update once you kind of, you have a small little learning curve. But after that, they're pretty easy to work with. The thing to remember is that Google has constantly, everything is very sensitive. So Google is constantly looking around to make sure that you're on the straight and narrow. And when you're not and you get suspended, and it gets a little trickier because then you're in the whole idea of what do I do? And that's where I try to help people because it's a pretty straightforward road, but it's just not as obvious as I think Google may want it to be. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's what
Yeah,
they are.
absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up, lead generation in there and properly optimizing it. And that's kind of where we kind of overlap because I feel like, we talk about SEO from a website perspective, but people think that's all SEO is like, oh, search engine website optimization. But there's such a large aspect of SEO that goes outside of your website, like with Google business listings. So I would love to talk about some of the most important guidelines or perhaps tips that pet business owners should follow when they are either creating a Google listing or perhaps managing it or optimizing it? Like what are your best tips and guidelines?
Okay, well, first of all, this is not specifically SEO. This is local SEO. SEO in general is large, like Amazon, like really, really large. But when you're optimizing for a location, that's when you get into that kind of local SEO space. And Google listings are essential to that. You can argue, well, I don't use Chrome, I use Bing. Well, guess what? You usually, but not always, show up in Bing, to the point that Bing uses Facebook reviews and Apple Maps. There are also business listings in there as well. All of these are part of local SEO, and local SEO is what's going to get dog walkers, pet sitters, groomers, kennels, local, any sort of small business. That's how you get seen, is because you have all of those elements coming together. Local optimization on a website is something that very few businesses I've seen really, really have a handle on without somebody kind of stepping in and saying, hey, check this out. You really should do this. You really should do that. So properly optimizing Google listing, there's no kind of proper way to do it. What you want to do is you want to make sure first that you are following the Google's guidelines, which it's long, but it's not a terribly long page, and it's very well organized. So you want to go in there and you want to start, like I said, the biggest thing is following the rules. The rules start with your title. Your title should be the name of your business. Duh. Everybody knows that. The problem is a lot of people also add terms, I don't know, Betty's pet sitting. Okay. People will then go in and say, I've heard it's better if we have, this in there or that in there. So I'm going to add that. Well, the problem with that is that's not really your business name. It's not your business name unless you have paperwork to support it. So first thing I say is don't add terms unless you have supporting paperwork for them. Terms may be great. Your new name may be great, but unless you have supporting paperwork for them, you can't use them according to Google. The next thing is address. And this is such a big one because a lot of people just don't understand how this works. Your address it needs to be a space that you control. It can be a house. Houses are fine. Apartments are great. Townhouses, whatever, condos, co-ops. But what the problem is that you can't use post office box. You can't use a UPS store or a virtual. I had somebody contact me today. They were all ready to go. Big business in London. And I translated the paperwork that they would need. And they happened to mention that they use a virtual mail address. And I was like, I'm sad because you can't use that. And so she basically, once I explained it and understood how it was enforced, you then have to go through the whole rigmarole of now obtaining the new space. If you're using a virtual or post office or a co-working space, there's very specific rules about those. But if you're using those, there's a whole process you need to go through to make sure that you are now following Google's guidelines, starting with getting your paperwork updated. So if you are at a space, if it's your home, that's cool. If it's something like that I mentioned, like a post office place, mailboxes, etc., UPS, whatever, make sure that you look at your paperwork. You make sure that you update the address to, again, usually your home, because those Google's guidelines, and you can complain about them all you want, but they're the elephant in the room. And if the elephant isn't happy, they will sit on you, squash you, and they will not bring your listing back until you are in compliance. That's the biggest thing with address. Also, addresses cannot be visible on listings unless you have signage there. Okay, so if you have a storefront, you can show that address as long as you have the storefront and the signage. If you don't have any signs there, no address at all. If you live in an apartment, you cannot have your address unless you have permanent signage. and most people don't. If you live in an HOA, that's probably not going to happen either. You have to be really, you have to comply with the guidelines and just, like I said, if you want the address to show, you have to have permanent signage. If you don't want your address to show, that's totally cool. You update that in the settings. People sometimes ask me, well, hey, isn't it better if I have my address show? Well, yeah, it is better. You get a little bit more visibility, but you also want to make sure that your listing doesn't get suspended for being out of compliance. So you have to kind of play that game. So those are the biggest things. And then the staying in compliance, those are the two largest things. Then you want to look in terms of optimization, you want to look at using all the options that they give you. Things like photos. You should have your photos, and they said this like 2 or 3 years ago. They were like, okay, no more, all the photos need to be in focus. Kind of like, okay, that's kind of obvious, but they need to be well lit, they need to be in focus, and they need to comply with what the business actually is. I have one right now where it's a law firm and they have a photo of a guy's two eyes. I guess he's a local guide and wants points. I have my opinion of local guides recently is not very high. But yeah, but you want to have photos that that are specific to your business. And you want to have a lot of them, and you want to have a lot of them too. That's also very helpful. Products. There are products offered. And a lot of people say, well, I don't provide any products. I don't sell anything that, that somebody can reach out and hold. And that's totally cool. But at the moment, we are able to list services as in the products area. So you can do things like, like 15-minute dog walks, half-hour dog walks, overnight stays, wedding attendance, cat care, things like that, for which, especially in the case of cat care and wedding attendance, there is no category. So, excuse me, having a product that has those would give you a little bit more visibility within Google. The next thing that you want to do is you want to have services. The services that you list should be consistent with what you provide. As I was about to mention before, if there are categories, if you provide a service for which there is no category, the best place besides products, but the best place is to populate the services area. Services, you don't have to use the ones, they will usually suggest some, but you don't have to use those. What you want to do is you can use those, but you want to add the ones that are specific to the services you provide. If you provide cat care, there's no category for that. So you go in and you do like, mention four different variations on the term cat care, dog walking, like dog walking like in your town, 30-minute dog walking. And then you can do, pet sitting. Then you can do overnight pet sitting, things like that. But you want to have those in that area, especially if there's no category for the service you provide. And then just generally, you want to make sure that you're asking for reviews on a regular basis. And you want to respond to those reviews as they came in. I was so happy the last two reviews I got, these people were like over the moon. And I'm like trying to come up with a nice professional response saying, this is so nice of you. But you need to do that. You need to kind of keep up. You need to get reviews on a regular, consistent basis, and you need to reply to them. Do not buy reviews and do not incentivize reviews. Google is for like the past, I think it's either about a year, Google has been testing putting labels on listings that had fake reviews. And they do a few things. They remove the reviews. They then go in and put a label on your listing saying that you've had questionable reviews. And then they do not let you get reviews for, I think it's either 30 or 90 days. Don't be that guy. Don't let that happen to you. Just get regular reviews from legit customers. Everybody will be happy. Everybody will walk away clean. Just don't start these conversations by saying, well, you know what? I got 50 reviews the other day and it really worked and it was really great. That's the other thing. You got 50 the other day? Are you going to get 50 today? Because if Google sees these bumps, it doesn't help as much as you think. They prefer consistency. They want to see like a straight line of when they come in. So also fake reviews. Fake reviews are sometimes difficult to get rid of. I actually, there's a few kinds that are very difficult to get rid of. One of them is 1 star review or any low review that have no text. Google won't remove reviews because, quote, I don't know who that client was. I could start an email account right now in the name of Tinkerbell, and I could leave reviews for places that I have gone, the place, right down the road. And they can't get that taken down. I went there. But because there's a few things, because you can create an account in any name, and because there can be multiple accounts with same name, like similar names, there's no way at the moment for Google to verify if the person who wrote the review actually dealt with the business. So until that time, if the only reason you have that a review you're trying to get rid of is you don't recognize the name, most likely will not come down. And I think a lot of people forget about that. There are some that you can get down. I got one down recently, and my fellow PEs were like, how, give us details. And it was that somebody who had been fired had left bad reviews. They and their wife had left bad reviews. Unfortunately, they also left a trail. So it was great because I said to the person, this is the sort of information that would get this taken down. They came back with a ton of information that Google could verify, that I first verified, that Google could verify, and it was gone within a week. But again, that doesn't happen very frequently, that people have that much proof and verifiable proof. So that's pretty much it. You want to follow Google's guidelines. You want to optimize by using all the different options that they have, and you want reviews on a consistent basis, and make sure that you respond to them in a polite, professional way. If you don't agree with somebody, you don't have to agree with everybody, but you should kind of be nice about it so that you come off as the consummate professional. Like, what do they say? Don't go down to their level. If somebody
Mhm.
has just saying something that's completely fake and you can't get rid of it, just reply professionally. That's all you can do.
Yeah. Okay, a couple of follow-up questions on that. For when there is not a category and we're listing our services, for an example, the wedding attendant, and we have a couple of different ways that we say that. Are those things that we're just listing, or are we actually creating like product or like service descriptions in like an organic way? Like, what's the best practice there?
I've seen it both ways. I don't see a value to creating a description because for the most part, I don't think Google really, they don't then show that. What they will say is, like, if you're looking for a wedding attendant, you will sometimes, if somebody goes in and says, wedding attendant, pet wedding attendant near me, you will see them Google quote that and just say, this business provides, or a quote from a review saying, whatever somebody quoted about that really quick, just like they'll take like a snippet. But I really don't see any value, and I've not seen anyone else do a study saying that posting a description helps. So, I mean,
Okay,
I
so
don't.
okay, cool. I mean, that releases some pressure from people. I feel like then the most important is like the actual potential like search term is what's most important because that's what Google will
Well,
show.
that's it. That's it. Because you don't really want to continually, basically, you want a return on investment. And if your time investment is, I just spent 20 minutes on putting 4 of these in there, I'm not
Mhm.
now going to spend 80 minutes working up a description.
Mhm.
It's a
Right.
good return on investment, but don't make yourself crazy.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, and then as far as reviews go, do reviews themselves actually, like how many reviews you have actually impact where you show up in the search results in terms of like Google Maps and all of that stuff? Or how does that work in terms of like, is it just, oh, well, this one has 50 reviews and this one has 25. I'm going to pick the one that has 50, or how does it actually impact visibility?
Um, Visibility is, well, we're talking rankings. Rankings are based on several different factors, and I think these are also all very good factors. The first is proximity. They are going to recommend people I mean, all of these things factor in, but the first thing they do is they look at where this person is located, where the business is located relative. Well, I shouldn't say that. They look at where you are located, and then they look for the businesses that are nearby that comply with your whatever search that you did. Okay. So if you're sitting there saying that you want a dog walker in your town that's who's open now, that's what Google looks for. They look for the closest one, but they also look for ones that have usually good ratings and good reviews. Now, I know tons of people who say, oh, they get all nervous because they say, I don't have a 5.0. Well, guess what? Most businesses don't. So you shouldn't stress out about that too much. If you have a 4.7, 4.8, 4.9, good. People will look at you. People, and they also come up different reasons too. Like, you may come up because you're within close proximity of, the person who's searching, but you may also come up because you provide a service that others around you do not. Like I said, if you want to be seen for pet wedding attendant, and if somebody goes and does pet wedding attendant near me, if you show up, you're going to show up even if you have fewer reviews than somebody else, especially if you have optimized for that term on your Google listing and on your website. So there's a lot of things to take into consideration, but it's usually proximity first, then rating, then the business name. A lot of people don't think about that. But remember I was saying before, don't add terms to your title. But if your title has services you provide and or the address, sorry, not the address, the location. Okay. So it would be like, Betty's Pet Sitting. You could move that to Betty's Pet Sitting and Dog Walking, or Betty's Pet Sitting and Dog Walking in Boise, or Boise, whatever. Those are all great. Those are all great titles. Look a little spammy, but they will get you action. I mean, I'm sure you've seen them around. There's like handyman near me, plumber near me, all of this. The titles do help. You don't want to get too spammy, but yeah, that also will help. So it's like it's proximity, it's rating, it's your title, and then of course it's which businesses have the most information about the service requested. Okay. Like if somebody says pet wedding attendant, and only one business in the area has that and has it optimized for it in every way possible, both on the Google listing as well as on the website, that business is going to show up over somebody who kind of just mentions it in passing. So all of those combine in.
Okay. No, that all makes sense. I'm curious, this is something I've heard, and I'm not sure if this is a myth or if this actually makes a difference here, but I've heard this been said about if you get negative reviews, you do in your response, you don't put your business name, but in positive reviews, if you put your business name, that can actually impact your visibility because now your business name is now mentioned again in a positive review. Have you heard that? And is there any
I'm sorry,
validity to that?
you lost me a little bit. Are you saying in your response?
Correct. In the
No,
response, mentioning your business name for positive reviews,
no,
not for
doesn't matter.
negative.
Google doesn't look
Okay.
at Google looks to see that you responded, but they don't use the contents of your response. It's kind of like photos. People used to say, oh, well, you should make sure that your photos are geotagged. And there's like these services that'll do that. And there's tools that'll do that, except for one thing. When photos are uploaded, Google strips the exit data. So people have said it for years. People have told them no for years, and it still happens. Yeah, Google doesn't use the content of responses. The only time they do is if you ever like had to report the response, which I have seen people do. But no, they don't. Google doesn't use the contents of the response. So I
Okay.
would call BS on that one.
Okay. Good to know. And it is good then we want to be responding to positive reviews and negative reviews. All reviews we're responding to.
I have a maybe on that. I say, because I have had issues with this, Do not, if you plan to dispute a review, and this doesn't matter if it's positive or negative, if you plan to dispute it, I say do not respond, because your response could then negate the reason that you were planning to use to dispute the listing with Google. Like, I had somebody who said that, they didn't do whatever it was that the person said, but when they wrote in the review, they admitted they did it. So I'm sitting there trying to dispute this review, and this wacky attorney is like, she's basically like stabbing me in the back. I said, I'm doing this. I'm doing this because somebody told me to do it. Somebody asked me to do it. And then she's out there doing something completely different. It's like, so ever after, I have said, if you plan to dispute something with Google, do not respond. If after all you do, Google does not agree with you and does not remove it, then you can respond. I would always, always, always respond politely. I would not get into personal details. I would not say you are wrong for the following reasons. And I would not mention like their name or anything else unless they've already mentioned it. Because Google people can report review responses, and they do. So just remember to, just keep it very, very simple and very polite and very professional, and leave it at that, even if the person is wrong.
How long does that process take? Because I know that some people might get anxious to not address a review publicly.
Okay. Here's the process. The first thing you do is you report it from either the account or from the review management tool. If it is not removed, then you can appeal it in the review management tool. If it is still not removed, you can go onto the Google Business Help Forum or Help Community, and you can ask somebody there to help you out, mentioning that you've already tried, the other methods. That person, the product experts on this forum, have two paths. They do the first path. If that doesn't work, they try the last final path. So that can take months. I mean, I've had people who were just sitting there for months waiting for Google to do the right thing, and it just doesn't happen. And eventually they just give up, which is sad, because I don't think that's Google showing the best, but that's sometimes what happens. So there's no timeline. I mean, I would wait for the first step. I would wait a week. The second step, I would wait a week. And then once you get it together, you either go to the forum yourself, or you hire somebody like me to do it. It might be able to kind of fast track it a little bit, but that's going to take at least another 2 weeks. So, you're looking at a month right there. So, I mean, that's an issue too. You have to decide, is it worth it? Sometimes people just want to dispute it on their own, which is great. Sometimes people come to me and say, will you dispute it for us? And, I always ask, what have you done already? And then, I'll decide. I don't like doing review disputes, because sometimes I get very sad when Google doesn't do what I think they should. But,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah. And I mean,
there is a definite process that you need to go through.
yeah. And I mean, one review can make a big impact on your overall rating, which
Yeah,
is
but
so unfortunate.
no, no, I
You don't
completely
think so?
disagree with that. And here's the thing.
Okay.
If one review lowers your rating, then you don't have enough reviews.
Mhm. Yeah.
Your goal should get, and there is math to it. I mean, and I can link to it, and I also have my own tool that can tell you. But if you're at a place where one bad review puts you to a place that you find it, that intolerable, then you've not been doing your job. You need to go out and you need to ask every client, do whatever you have to do, and just say, can you please leave me a positive response? I hear that all the time, and they're like, oh, it's awful, it's crushing. And I wouldn't go, you have 2 reviews on your listing. 2. One of them is bad. Yes, I understand that pulls you down to a silly level, but you shouldn't have 2. You should have, 20. You should have, because the more, just math wise, the more you have, the less of an effect a bad one has on you. And I mean, I can't tell you off the top of my head what the number is, but if you have a 5.0 and you get over 100, one of them ain't going to hurt. You know,
Yeah,
he wants it. It's going to hurt. It's going
it's
to hurt
true.
you emotionally. It's going to make you
Yeah.
feel bad, but it's not going to, totally dip you down. So
Yeah, that's a really good point.
yeah,
I'm really
I
glad you brought
get
that
very
up.
frustrated when people say that because I just kind of want to go, you put yourself into that position and you shouldn't. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm really glad you brought that up. So I'd love to kind of pivot into the whole, because you brought it up a little bit earlier about suspensions and what can happen with your listing. I'd love to, like, what's the difference between a suspension or like there's soft warnings? Like, how do you get reinstated? Like, what's the scoop on all of that?
okay, I actually wrote about this on LinkedIn a little while ago. Find me on LinkedIn. Yeah, same last name and everything. There's a few different things. There is verification. There is a suspension. There's a soft suspension. There's a hard suspension, and there's disappeared. I wrote a post about this. Verification means that sometimes you will just have a regular listing that you haven't touched in a while, and all of a sudden you will see that it's asking for verification. What that means is, and oftentimes when this happens, your listing will still show up, but they will all of a sudden say, okay, you can't respond to reviews, you can't make changes until you verify. And it's not really verify, someone says re-verify, should prove to us that you are still legit. And oftentimes that requires either sometimes a phone call, some very rarely, very exceptionally rarely a postcard. They used to do postcards. They don't do those anymore. And usually it's a video. And yeah, I have a whole worksheet on how to do this, on where to stand, what to do. But that's verification. It's usually a video. It's just to prove that you are where you say you are. But again, going back to those people who thinks that it's okay to use a post office box. I had a lovely person a few years ago send me a video and saying that she couldn't understand why her listing wasn't getting verified after she did the video. Turns out that she was showing herself walking into the post office, even show the name of the post office, walking to her post office box, opening up the door, pulling her documents out, closing the door, locking it again, and going over in the video showing her with these documents. You're not allowed to use a post office box. And this video is kind of showing why you're not. So video verification, the Google started this because there are a lot of spam listings that people started in just like, in the middle of a road, things like that. So that's one thing. You may get asked to do a re-verification, which usually, but not always, involves a video. You may also, because I'll save the big one for last. Also, sometimes, very rarely, but I have seen them a lot more happen recently. You will log into your listing and it's not there. Be scared, be nervous, it's not there. So when I say that, I mean it is not, you cannot find it. If you go and search on your business name and location, it doesn't show up. If you log into the listing the way you have done, which is why I always tell people log in at least once a month, but if you log in and you don't see it, that's a problem. It's a big problem. So in that case, we usually call that disappeared. Your listing is disappeared, has disappeared. What you want to do is very, very quickly, you want to contact support. I know people will ask me, so I will just happen to mention it. It's support.google.com/business/get-help. But you can Google it. But you want to tell them as soon as possible the name of the listing. They will probably grab some of it, but it's the name of the listing, the address, whether it showed or not, any identifying information you have for it. Maybe you sent out to people, here, take a look at my listing or leave me a review. All put those in there. If that doesn't work, then you go on to Google Business Help Profile, the Google Business Profile Help Community Forum, and just explain to them what's going on. You can contact me. I can help you with all this. I can hire me and I will do the whole process for you anyway. But that's disappeared. So there's verified, re-verification. There is disappeared. And here's the one that we see, unfortunately, more often than anything else. Your listing has been suspended. Or sometimes they will use the term disabled. When this happens, it's not as bad as it may seem. It can be, but it's usually not. And what usually people will say, well, look, they said I had deceptive content. No, no. Deceptive content is kind of a broad term, where they're not going to tell you exactly what's wrong. They never do. And for them to even say deceptive content is more than they did like 2 years ago when they just said you're suspended and that's the end of that. So, what you need to do, regardless of what they say the rationale is you need to get your paperwork together that supports your listing title and the address. If you are using something that you now know, an address that you now know is incorrect, you fix your address, make sure all your paperwork is compliant, and then you go in and appeal. You get 2 appeals. After that second appeal, if that is rejected, if they're both rejected, then your only option is to go onto the Google Business Profile Help Forum and ask a product expert to escalate. I provide this service. I walk everybody straight through the whole thing, and I do this for half. I have always done it this way. I've always done it at half the price that I do, other businesses in other categories. It can be an involved process, not actually doing it, but the paperwork. A lot of people don't realize, I mean, they're sending in invoices, they're sending in, letters, to clients. None of that works. They're sending in photos. That's only used half the time. So the biggest things that you could run into are video verification, or I should say verification in general, if your listing disappears or if your listing gets suspended. P.S. There's 2 types of suspension, types of suspension. There's a soft suspension and a hard. Soft means your listing still shows, but Google has suspended you and says to you that basically it's like re-verification. They want you to give that information so that they know that you are who you say you are. And hard is when you're completely offline, nobody can find you. You can still log in. You're still there. It's not like a disappearance. It's you are, you can still log in and adjust whatever you want to do. So there's that. But those are the 3 things. It's either a verification issue, a listing disappeared, or disable/suspended. I don't think they use suspended frequently. They usually use disabled.
Gotcha. Okay. That is a lot of information. So I love that you help with this. Um, like I would love to, right now, actually, if you wouldn't mind, just kind of sharing a little bit about what you specifically, because I know you say you can help with those suspensions and things like that. Like what all do you offer when it comes to Google Business Profile listings?
Oh, I can help you optimize it. I do reports, which are about 20 pages, and I go through every element on it, and I tell you if any of them are problematic slash will cause you to get suspended. And I find that in one of out of about every 15 that I do. And that's one service. I don't fix it for you. I tell you what, needs to be addressed. I also do general troubleshooting. Like I said, reviews. I'm very picky about reviews because there has to be a lot of proof or a lot of problems with the reviews. I also, like I said, I also do help with reinstatements because reinstatements, there's a lot of things going on usually that it's like there's a lot of nuance in there. So that's a big thing. But again, I can also look at a Google listing and say to you, like when people ask me, can you help me optimize my listing? I always tell people it's like, yes, but I have to look at it first. It's kind of like with a reinstatement. I don't automatically say, give me money, I will get you reinstated. I want to see what your proof is and what your listing looks like. It's the same thing. If you ask me to optimize, I want to go in there and I want to look every year around New Christmas, New Year's, I have a sale. And every year, like I said, I'm not a vending machine. People give me all this information and then I go in and I take a look and I want to make sure that I can provide enough value because some people have great listings. They're doing well relative to those in their area. They don't really have a lot that needs to be looked at. So yeah, that's pretty much it. It's troubleshooting, it's reviews, but not as much, and suspensions. Suspensions are.
Okay.
I'm about to offer some other services coming up. Probably will have them out by the end of August. But yeah,
That sounds
haven't organized the structure yet. I know what it's going to be, but I've
gotcha.
not gotten the structure ready. So there's that.
Gotcha. Well, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what that is. Do you have any like favorite client stories that you wouldn't mind sharing with
Oh,
us of either helping with,
oh,
like, I'd love to hear.
it's helped with somebody. These are not necessarily pet sitters, but I once helped somebody whose was I guess a campground on the Arabian Peninsula. And I had tell the gentleman I needed, amongst the other things that I needed, because his address showed. So I told him I needed his lease or rental statements. And he told me that his clients, sorry, his landlords were Bedouins. And if I wasn't aware, Bedouins are migratory and that those people owned the land, but they did all the business transactions by handshake so that he would not be able to present me with a lease. I was like, okay, this is cool. I had somebody else who was someplace in Indonesia and he's in a village. And when I said to him, you need things like business registration paperwork, he asked if it would be okay if because they didn't really have that there, if he could have the big man write a letter, the big man of the village, to say that that the business was legit. And I said, that would be fine. Thank you very much. I'm thinking, the big man. I still remember you use that term, the big man. But yeah, I love helping businesses with all different, all different types. Like I said, I was very, very happy I got that employee. There were two reviews that were related to a former employee. I was very, very proud of getting that done. I've had a lot of review attacks taken down. We had, I think it was not this year, but last, there were, I think, 5 businesses in a US East Coast city. All pet sitters had all been gotten bad reviews from one person within a very short period of time, got those all removed. So it's fun dealing with this because you're dealing people with all around the world. I had people up in Greenland who I dealt with, and I get a lot of Australians, Canadians. Basically, if they speak English, I deal with them. And if I somehow pick them up where they speak English to post on the forum or to write to me, but their documents are in another language or another alphabet, like recently I've been getting people who contact me whose documents are in Arabic. The product expert community is filled with some lovely people from all around the world. I have a lovely man who's based, I think, outside of Bristol in England, who happens to read Arabic. So I'll just say, hi, would you please give me this fakeness? Because I can't. But
Yeah.
it's really interesting dealing with this topic. It's very niche, and I understand that. And I know a lot of time the best thing you could do is nothing. You just don't want to touch it. Just leave it the way it is and just, that's a good thing. But for those businesses who all of a sudden find themselves in really, really bad trouble, um, I really enjoy helping because
Yeah.
these things affect you so seriously. Like I said, a lot of people just say that's it. I've been offline so long, or I don't have this, or I don't have that. I'm just like in such a bad spot. I had somebody write to me recently saying, um, she said I actually had posted this on LinkedIn because I thought it was so nice. They said something like, I've been dealing with this for 5 months and you got it fixed within 3 days. That's the sort of thing that really kind of makes your heart go. So,
Yeah, absolutely. That's incredible. Well, I have one random question for you before we wrap up and learn where we can find you. I forgot to ask this earlier, but you can post, like, similar to like a Facebook page on Google Business Listing. Is that something that impacts anything? Like, should you be active on there and posting or sharing blog posts or
it's
uploading
hard.
frequent
It's a tough
pictures?
question. It's a very tough question because on the one hand, you should fill out everything. The more active you are, the more likely Google will recommend you. On the other hand, and Google does occasionally quote them, not as much as they do services and reviews and things. But at the moment, they fill space and they do it well. But something else that should be considered is that Google's constantly moving things around. Like they have been optimizing those posts for restaurants for the past few months. And my personal opinion is that like you'll look at it on your desktop and they'll be at the bottom. You look at it on your phone, they'll be at the top. You go back to say another browser, because I use 3 browsers during the day, and all of a sudden it'll be in a different place. I have a feeling that Google is going to move on to placement of these, and they're going to make them more prominent and maybe give us more tools to use. I don't, I'm not saying anything that I'm not allowed to say. Under an NDA for stuff, but I'm not saying anything, that they've told us. But I just have this feeling that they're going to be doing something, within the next year or so. So I would keep posting. And I don't think you need to do it more than, once a week, twice a month, something like that. But it takes up space and it looks pretty. So,
Yeah,
and also
true.
if you do it right, every single post that you have should link to either a page on your website or to call you. So that's another way that you're prompting Google to go from this Google listing to your website. And that's considered an in-link. And in-links are wonderful things. So, there is that.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great advice. Is there anything else that you feel we didn't talk about or touch on that you want to include before we wrap up?
I also do video SEO audits. And because I hate to say it, when I do an SEO audit, a paper one, it takes me like 10 hours. But that tells you the degree of detail that I put into it. And to me, it's not worth it to make them half the detail. It's just not. So I also do the video audits. The person can come on with me if they want, or I will just go through it. SEO is something that I think a lot of small businesses don't understand. I started out by working for a man who had really good pet sittingology. He had very good, the design was good, and the structure when it was good when it started. But after a while, when you do things on your own, some things kind of float away. And I think you need somebody else with like a different set of eyes to come in and say, I don't know where you are. I'm on your homepage and I don't know where you are. And that's the sort of thing I pull out for a lot of people. You don't necessarily have to do everything that I point out, but on the other hand, it gives you a task list. It gives you a
Hmm.
task list of, okay, she said to work on my homepage. She said to work on this. She said to work on that. So I love SEO. I'm just not into because my reports were between 15 and 25 pages. And imagine doing like, that's a term paper. And I would do 2 of them a week. And it's hard to keep up with that. It really is. After a while, it's like, eh, I don't care as much, So
Yeah,
that's pretty much
yeah.
it. I love my friends in the pet sitter community. I'm going to be at the Florida Pet Sitters gathering in August and hope to see a lot of people there. I was at PSI the last couple of years. Kind of wish I was going back, but timeline, didn't work out. It doesn't matter to anybody but I'll be in Dublin, Ireland in October with Google, which is kind of cool because they set it up.
Nice.
And
That's cool.
yeah, I like to get together with more pet sitters. Hopefully next year. Hopefully there'll be different opportunities to to see people in person, which will be nice. I look forward to
Absolutely.
it.
I would love to know, like, how can people find you, learn about your services? I know you also mentioned LinkedIn. Can you tell me all of that information?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm Amy Toman, Toman. I always tell people. I am also a pet sitter SEO on Facebook. That's also my website. I also have a page for reinstatements and a page for listing optimizations. Where else am I? Let's see. I'm on Facebook, Pet Sitter SEO, under my own name on LinkedIn. I'm also trying to think. If you ever had someone else from outside the pet sitter world, I'll give you my email, my pet sitter email, and I will give you my everybody else email. They get treated the same way, but sometimes people would go, wait, pet sitter? Yeah. So my pet sitter email is that's AMY, at petsitterseo.com. If you don't hear, I always tell people too, if you don't hear from me within 24 hours, you know, ping me on Facebook. And the other one is local at amytheseo.com. There's no website attached to that at this time. So it's local at
Awesome.
amytheseo.com or at Pet Sitter SEO. Yeah. Or local at Amy the SEO. And I'm around.
Perfect.
I unfortunately am around a lot. I'm usually around usually about 10 or 12 hours a day. I've had people contact me at very weird times. So happy.
Well, especially when you have clients all over the world, it's
Well,
different
yeah, but
times.
you know what? I also really feel for people when their listings go down. You know,
Yeah.
I just, every once in a while you'll just kind of go, oh, don't, please contact me before you do, this or that or the other
Yeah.
thing. Like I said, I can be hired to do a lot of things on Google listings. I don't edit websites for the most part, but I can tell you how to get a heck of a lot more traffic out of them. Um, I've been doing it a long time. I've been doing it for pet sitters for 10 years, and I've been doing it for the Google listings for almost 6 years. So I'm
Nice.
happy to
Awesome.
keep with my pet sitting community friends.
Absolutely. So before we sign off, I'd love to learn. We always end a guest interview with a question on burnout or stress. I'd love to learn something that you do in your daily life to help reduce stress or burnout that you would recommend for our listeners.
Well, it's funny because what I do is probably what pet sitters already do, which is I take a walk down either to the beach because I live by the beach, or just walk the boardwalk for a while. But I mean, that usually works for me. Like I said, I also volunteer a lot by helping people there. That's pretty much it. I'd like to have kind of a snappy response, but that's pretty much it. It's
Yeah.
going for a walk by the beach, or walking from my house to the beach, and yeah, just like helping people out. Every once in a while, you help somebody out, and they come back and they say the absolute nicest things, and that's my thing. Just be nice. Just,
Hmm.
being nice to people and understanding that they're really stressed. A lot of times people come to me and they're just on absolutely on the edge. And just trying to be nice to everybody. That's a good way to keep stress
Yeah.
away.
Yeah. I love that. Well, that's a perfect way to end the episode. Thank you so much for your time and your expertise. This was so valuable. I'm so excited for our listeners to be listening to this. It's incredible. So thank you so much.